We had several of our children that were participating in this dance recital yesterday at the Tecumseh Center for the Arts. And it was really, really good. Our children were fantastic. They really were. There were a lot of wonderful youth in there. But I got to tell you, there's this one young lady by the name of Kelsey Malcolm. Anybody know Kelsey? Raise your hand. Any Tecumseh students? Well, anyhow, it's amazing that even though they had 30 dancers, approximately, your eyes kind of just tracked to Kelsey. As she was dancing, one, she's really good, but you know, there are other dancers that are equally as good, but for some reason you just kept wanting to look at Kelsey. And it's, why? Because she had this beautiful smile. And it was like the charisma that was in her was just flowing out, and you just had to watch Kelsey. And obviously it has done well for her. She's been selected one student out of 30 in the nation for this prestigious program in California, and some other things as well. And so I thought about that today just as I was talking with Owen. I thought this really is the heart of what I'm going to talk about today in Philippians 2, 12 through 13, where the apostle talks about working out our salvation with fear and trembling. Here's the point, and we'll get right to it. This gal has something deep within her that as she's dancing, it comes out of her face, out of her fingers, out of her feet, her arms, and everything. So this, whatever's inside is really beautiful is coming out. You know, art is the language of the soul. If art is the language of the soul, who should be expressing it more than those who have the Holy Spirit living within them? Right? And so you think I'm kidding about this everybody dance now thing and dancing. We should be dancers. We should be singers. We should be laughers. And as we dance and sing and laugh through life, people can't keep their eyes off us. It's like no matter what else they're looking at, they're just like magnets directed to us because it's just gushing out of our soul. What a beautiful illustration. If you could have seen this gal, and some of you did, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? You saw her dance. It's like, I was talking with Andrea this morning. She said, yeah, you couldn't keep your eyes off this gal. And that's the same thing with us, guys. That as we allow God's Spirit to work out of us, that people can't keep their eyes off us. Because that's just flowing out. It's such a beautiful thing. So, we're in Philippians chapter 2, 12 and 13. But I want to begin by reading out. Where in the world are we? Oh, we're good. Now, you see that thing up there on the board? Does anybody know what that thing is? Wheat germ. What'd you say, Sammy?
Looks like a milkweed pod.
Like a milkweed pod? Who said that back there? Rosebud. You said rosebud? That's exactly what it is. It's a rosebud. All right? And don't forget that. That rosebud is very important for the whole lesson today. So look at that. I want to read just something out of Ephesians, but keep the slide right up there on Philippians. Paul says, "For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this not from yourselves, it is the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast." Okay? We're saved by God's grace. God's grace alone. And yet, how many people really struggle with what is the definition of grace? Now, I got to tell you, I grew up in a fellowship where grace was defined this way. Nothing against the fellowship, just they didn't have the grace thing right. Okay? And they used to say something like, for instance, Derek over here. You know, he's a pretty good Christian. And so, if you take a ruler about 12 inches, 0 is the hot place, and 10 is heaven. All right, Derek? And he's like 3.5 inches. But he falls short of the foot. So God comes down and makes up the other amount. Okay? Now, Jody here, she's 4 inches, though. She's even better, you know. And then God will come down. And you follow what I'm saying? No matter where you're at on the scale, God makes up the difference. And that kind of sounds good. The trouble is, theologically, it is terrible. Because it somehow makes you and I somehow accountable or somehow the ability to earn a portion of our salvation. We don't get any of it. It's God, the whole ruler. The entire 12 inches is God. I like this definition more, when we start looking at this works thing. It's like, okay, Jason, you and I are going to swim to Hawaii from California, right? And even though I'm a pretty good swimmer, I'm probably going to drown before I get there. Jason may get even further than me, but he's still going to drown before he gets to Hawaii. Guys, that's how it is about going to heaven. None of us are going to swim there the whole way. I mean, it's God the entire way. All right, you got that in mind, a very clear theology that we are saved 100% totally because of the grace of God. His gift to us. We don't work to earn any of it. None of us can boast. It doesn't matter if Jason's a better swimmer than me. It doesn't matter if Jody's a better Christian than Derek. I don't even like that idea, better Christian. There's only one size. Christian is perfect, all, complete. Okay? So keep that in mind. It's all about God. So then we hear Paul in Philippians say this. Therefore, my dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only my presence, but now much more my absence, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you to will and to act according to His good purpose. So what's going on here? What's going on? It appears that on one hand, Paul is saying you can't do any kind of work to earn your salvation. Then he says, work out your salvation. Okay? Well, let's clear that up really quick. Let's pretend we're going to go to the gym. Josh is a good example. Big, strong, muscle guy, you know. He works out at the gym, probably can bench press a lot. But you know what? He didn't take anything into that gym but what God gave him. Not a thing. Now, he can take what God gave him and he can develop it through working out what's already there. And the same thing is true with each of us. Not only physically, but mentally, intellectually, physically, and spiritually. We can take what God has given us and we can work it out. All right? Developing what God has given us. Matter of fact, I've got two different extremes here. Everybody's filled with something. People used to tell me all the time, Tom, you're full of it. I knew it. You know, I knew I'm full of something. And we all are. And I came up with this idea of roses versus tombs. Roses versus tombs. All right? Roses versus tombs. I used to preach in a little congregation called Rosebud, Arkansas. How many familiar with Rosebud? Bob and Shirley are. You ever been to Rosebud?
He is.
What? B knows Rosebud? Yep. You been to Rosebud? You've been through it. Now, what's wonderful about Rosebud, if you start in Searcy, Arkansas, you get on a road called Pleasure. And as you drive west on Pleasure, you go over Joy Mountain. And as soon as you get over Joy, am I making any of this up, Bobby? After you get over Joy Mountain, you come to Rosebud. If you keep on going south, you end up in... No. You end up in Romance. You end up in Romance. Possum Trot is further down the road. It's just 10 miles west of Toadsuck. I'm not making any of this up, folks. This is all true. But in Rosebud, it's the first time I preached on this passage. I thought Rosebud is perfect. You see that rosebud up there? Rosebuds aren't very pretty necessarily on the outside, but they got great potential, don't they? What's inside them? A beautiful flower. Beautiful. But that rosebud the rose has to work itself out to make itself visible to all of God's creation. Now that's one thing. You look on the outside of a rosebud and you think, yeah, that doesn't look like much. Stinky old milkweed, somebody called it. Whatever. And so we made a judgment already what's on the outside. But what's inside is beautiful. Now on the other hand, Jesus talked in Matthew chapter 23 about whitewashed tombs. And on the outside, boy, they look pretty. All whitewashed, all painted up, looking nice. And people look on the outside and think, oh, that's gorgeous. But what was inside? Dead men's bones and rotting flesh and decay. Something's going to come out, folks. Every single one of us, whatever's in, is what will come out. Jesus, matter of fact, got into a discussion with some people about food restrictions. Lauren, did you know you couldn't eat bacon back then? Yeah, that was terrible. That was a hard life, man, without bacon.